The San Francisco 49ers avoided a nightmare. I'm going to tell you about the nightmare that the 49ers avoided this offseason and give you several reasons, not even just from me myself, but from well-respected journalists to make you feel better about your San Francisco 49ers. Hit subscribe if you're looking for daily 49ers content. Appreciate you guys. I'm here again, still on Prince Edward Island. Thank you in the comments for explaining to me that it is, in fact, a province of Canada. Pretty fun there, but let's get into what you actually clicked on this video for, starting with some of the tension. So obviously going into the offseason financially, there was some genuine concern around the San Francisco 49ers, around how they were going to pay Brock Purdy, about if they were going to pay and extend George Kittle for the end of his career, basically, as a 49er. What the 49ers were going to do with Fred Warner. A lot of people were saying this is a really good time to pay Fred Warner, even though he still has 2 years left on his deal. It helps with the hits, the cap hits down the line, lots of benefits, right? So all of that, then on top of that, there's all these other players that the 49ers could lose in free agency. Are they going to pay Dre Greenlaw? We did find out later the 49ers tried really hard to compete with the Denver Broncos to pay Dre Greenlaw, but Dre did not want to play for the 49ers because he wanted to be number one, and he knew he was never going to upstage the Fred Warner, best in the world. All of that being said, there was the tension going into the offseason, but then I was reading this report this morning. John Bueller from Fansided, don't really care a whole lot about what they have to say, but John Bueller was saying that the biggest red flag for the 49ers this season is Brock Purdy. The biggest concern is Brock Purdy, not because of the gameplay, okay, but we'll get back to that in a second, but because of the contract situation the 49ers committed to with Brock Purdy. Now, as far as I'm concerned, you can't actually make that argument unless you genuinely don't believe in Brock Purdy, unless you genuinely feel like Brock Purdy is not good enough to elevate the players around him, whatever. I know some of you guys have some differing opinions in the comments on that one, so whatever, I'll leave that one to you guys to discuss. But as far as I'm concerned, it's obvious you can't just say that, because I don't think Bueller would ever have said that about other quarterbacks like Tom Brady, the Tom Brady's of the world, for example. So whatever the case is, that's the tension. The tension is Brock Purdy, this contract's going to mess everything up. Well, as far as I'm concerned, that is an uneducated, quick take, not taking into account the full narrative, not taking into account the actual financial details. I actually think not only right now is this deal a great deal for the San Francisco 49ers, this is a great deal long-term for the 49ers. This is going to play out really, really well for them when it's all said and done. When you look at how much Brock Purdy got paid against the actual adjusted cap, it's not nearly as bad. And Brock Purdy, in fact, he and his agent was probably pretty disappointed with the deal and probably felt like they could have got a lot more, if I'm honest with you. And that's just how I feel. I think the news comes out differently. I think the agent makes a bigger deal about it. If the deal is where I think the agent is happy, I don't think the agent was happy with this deal. And he had every argument in the world to say, look how good Brock Purdy's been. Look where he's taken this team. Even on a bad season, look how highly he was ranked in all the stats. All of that being said, I'm getting down a rabbit hole here. Let's get to the good news, because that's what you clicked on this video for. Let's start with CBS Sports' Jared Dubin. He did a whole thing on the NFC West. Really, I feel like the NFC West is going to be a top 3 most difficult divisions. I've said that before, though, and I've been wrong. So we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. But I always go into these off seasons seeing the work that's being done by these other teams and feeling like, hey, the Seahawks, in my mind, they probably got better in a lot of positions outside of quarterback, I guess. We'll have to wait and see how that goes with Clint Kubiak, but whatever. Arizona Cardinals, their defense got better. The Rams, they look better as well. These guys, I think all these teams got a little bit better. And the 49ers, of course, I think the jury's still out on if they got better, quote unquote, but I think their defense got better in the right ways. That's going to be the most important thing. Maybe not better on paper because of the veteran presence that's left, but better overall in the ways that they needed to get better, which was stopping the run particularly. But we'll get into those details as we get into camp and start to see how this actual team, the 53-man roster, is shaking out and stuff. Here's what Jared Dubin said, just talking about last year so we can contrast that on how things are changing going into this upcoming season. Christian McCaffrey never got started. Debo never got fully healthy. Brandon Ayuk tore his ACL, MCL. First rounder Ricky Pearsall got shot. George Kittle missed a stretch. The offense looked nothing like the one the team expected to put out throughout the season. And that is the key thing. You know, I was actually driving up to Canada, driving through Canada, and I was listening to George Kittle on Bussin' with the Boys. And as I was listening to that, George Kittle made basically the same exact point. By the end of the season, he's looking around and he's like, so many of these guys are new, came in the middle, like throughout the season, and then the guys that he was expecting to line up alongside were not the guys you'd expect him to be lining up alongside. And he was talking to Kyle Shanahan because he has an open door policy and saying, I don't know, I don't want to be playing out there, man. I don't want to be putting my body on the line at this point in the season, watching all these guys go down and drop like flies, feeling kind of nervous that he was going to get injured. And very similar kind of experience. So just talking about how different the team was at the end of the season than what he was expecting the team to look like. And I think the 49ers, the organization, the front office, they all felt the same exact way. Very different team. Well, Dubin said, while Christian McCaffrey and Trent Williams are aging, he expects them to be healthy. He also said Ricky Pearsall, George Kittle, and Juwan Jennings are actually pretty talented wide receivers, pretty talented in the receiving game. Of course, you get also great blocking at a couple of those guys at least, and Ricky Pearsall will have to keep growing in his blocking game, but whatever. These guys are, in his opinion, Dubin's opinion, more than capable of carrying the load until Brandon Ayuk comes back. That's a good sign, obviously. The 49ers, of course, continue to make moves in the wide receiver room. We'll get to that in a different video. Then he said this, we know that there are few better coaches at scheming things up than Kyle. So he shares some confidence he has in the 49ers or with Kyle Shanahan running this offense. Then said these wild words, Brock Purdy, this is the kind of, let's just call it, in my opinion, like I'm putting this together to kind of bounce back against what John Bueller from Fanside has said about the biggest red flag being Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy proved last year that he can find success even when the environment around him isn't perfect. That's something I will agree with. I think we've heard Steve Young talk about it as well, that Brock Purdy got better with his legs. That was a part of his game that was kind of lacking up until the playoffs in 2023 when he made a huge impact being able to run the ball, especially against like Detroit. But you know, missing that in the regular season a lot in 2023 brings that out in 2024 in a really big way, in a really useful way, and not. It felt like too much at one point in the season. Like I was there at the game, that record-breaking Heat game, the Arizona Cardinals game at home. And I remember feeling like maybe he was doing a little bit too much running the ball at that point in the season. But then looking back, I actually feel really good about how much he ran the ball. I feel really good about the times that he chose to run the ball. Most of the time, I felt like it was a fruitful decision. So I feel really good about that. And then also said, if the 49ers can keep the stars on the field, they should go back to being a top five-ish offense. A top five-ish offense. That's Jared Dubin talking about, from CBS Sports, what the 49ers are going to do on offense this season. On the defensive side of the ball, he used the phrase reinforcements in town in the form of Robert Saleh. Talked about how Robert Saleh's offense was not great in New York. Not a big surprise there, but his defense was, in his words, consistently very good. Saleh gets the best out of his players. And my favorite quality in a coach has always been across all sports. My favorite quality in a coach has always been the ability to get the best out of the players. As a coach myself, I've prided myself on working on that, and that's the thing that I care about the most. Scheming is the fun part. You know, you can sit at home and you can figure all that out. But what you can do with the players and what you can get out of the players is far more valuable in my personal opinion. And I love that in a coach. I love it in every team. One of my favorite coaches of all time, Liverpool Football Club, Jurgen Klopp. One of my favorite things about him is he took over a squad and most of the players were exactly the same as the last guy, but he got so much more out of all of them, because he's the type of coach that can get the best out of players. And I love that he sees that in Robert Saleh. And I look forward to seeing how Robert Saleh can get the best out of this bunch of players, especially these rookies. It's going to be massively useful. Then This one was an interesting one. I'm going to add in two more here. I was listening to Fox Sports 1, or I saw it on Twitter actually. This particular clip popped up. Rick Boucher, I think that's how you say his name. I don't know. Brock Purdy. He lists Brock Purdy as most likely to make the playoffs over Patrick Mahomes, over Aaron Rodgers, over Joe Burrow, over Lamar Jackson, because of how difficult the AFC is in part, and also because he thinks the NFC has a path forward with Brock Purdy and people are overlooking them. Joy Williams, don't really care for most of her takes. She agreed, said that everybody is writing the Niners off too soon. So lots of positivity from me to share with you today. I hope that you find all of that good. Let me know in the comments what you think. As always, appreciate you guys and hope you guys are having a I don't even know what day of the week it is. Sunday? Hope you guys are having a fantastic Sunday.